Hey everyone, I'm Gurpreet Singh, and I'm going to talk to you about parental characteristics and involvement in decision-making bodies using a mixed method approach. Now, I came to this topic because I'm a part of the school site council committee, and a requirement of that committee is to have a parent or a couple parents at least. And we had a lot of trouble recruiting parents to join the committee. It's important for them to join because we make important decisions about how we're going to fund our school, how we're going to spend our money. And we always had one parent, but it was very difficult to find other parents to join, and there was a lot of absences, and parents would say they would come but wouldn't show up for various reasons. That's how I came up on this topic. Now, parent involvement is multifaceted, right? And Epstein describes it as there's six different kinds. There's parents meeting basic needs. There's schools being able to contact parents about programs and progress. Parent involvement in school activities, such as homecoming dances or back to school night. Um, there's also parents helping with learning activities at home, obviously like doing homework. There's parents' involvement in decision-making bodies at school, which is the focus of this study, and I'll explain more of that later. There's also parental collaboration with community organizations to increase family access to resources and services. And what this means is what are parents doing to help involved in the process of going to college and connecting with um, those programs that help students go to college, right? Um, how are they collaborating with those programs and helping make better decisions so there's better access for other parents? Now, parent involvement is this kind of big idea that schools have been trying to chase for a long time, right? As a teacher, we've always trying to get parents involved, and one of the main reasons why we want to get parents involved is because, in general, parent involvement nets significant achievement gains for the students, and so it makes sense for us to want to get children involved. Parents involved in. The purpose of this study is going to explore the relationship between parental characteristics and the parent involvement in decision-making bodies, in particular in the high school setting. And we're going to do this using a mixed method approach, and we call that explanatory sequential design. And in this design, you'll see that there is a quantitative analysis that comes first, and then using the quantitative analysis, we're going to do a follow-up qualitative analysis that might help explain what's going on in the quantitative results. And I'm going to give priority to the qualitative design, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a later slide. Now, you might be wondering why I care about the parental characteristics such as SES, language, and race. And it's because I'm going to be using the transformative perspective. And in this perspective, it kind of considers all the diverse perspectives of every individual, and especially those who have been marginalized in the past or historically been marginalized. Um, and one of the main things that occurs in this perspective is that the researcher is kind of involved in the community, right? It's not just some outside spectator, right? It has to be within it, whether you are from the community or have engaged in the community in some other kind of way. Lastly, during this design, it kind of is important for the participants to be involved in the whole process, right? And the decisions that you make about the quantitative design and the results that come from it. And you're always involving the stakeholders, right? And even in the qualitative phase, you want to make sure that you're capturing their word correctly. And so you're constantly asking them if you're capturing their words correctly, right? And getting permission from them. And then showing that your final product to them, and making sure that you represent them in a way that is not detrimental. Now, taking into account the transformative perspective and worldview, I came up with 3 research questions, and the quantitative research question is, do parental characteristics play a role in parental involvement in decision-making bodies in a secondary school? The mixed method question is, how can we use interviews to explain the results of the quantitative analysis? And finally, the qualitative question would be, what are the barriers and facilitators for parents' involvement in decision-making bodies? Now, there's been an extensive amount of research that has been done for parent involvement, and it's because of that idea that I mentioned earlier that parent involvement is key to student success. And the research has proven that to be true also. So schools that have comprehensive parent participation program, meaning they do a good job recruiting and getting parents involved, typically do better for the students than schools that do not have a parent participation program. And this is especially true if the parent program was created with the input of parents themselves. Another key idea from parental involvement talks about how if you have an active student advisory board, then there's benefits from all facets, right? School, educationally, politically, socially, right? But there is also evidence of parent involvement and barriers to parent involvement, right? And the reason why I mention this is because using the transformative perspective, we want to find out, right, what groups are having trouble participating in the children's school. And so we find that parents from minority backgrounds were more likely to feel threatened by teachers and perceive educational attainment differences, right? For instance, if a parent who was just had education through elementary school and middle school might be afraid to approach a teacher because of educational differences. And then another thing is just having the cultural capital of being able to participate in the school, right? Like, do parents feel like they have enough knowledge, right? And a lot of times they feel like they don't. Finally, teachers have sensed that parents are having trouble communicating, or they're afraid to communicate, right? And that's because of language differences or cultural differences, right? So those are kind of what exists in the literature. But the reason why I wanted to create the study that I have currently is because most of the research has been done in elementary schools and middle schools, and that's because there's more parent involvement then, and there's a lot less research in the high school setting. And so I want to focus my research in the high school setting. And then on top of that, parental involvement typically just focus on in general parental involvement, such as homework or attending parent-teacher conferences or getting phone calls home, and less so in terms of the decision-making bodies, right? And so for this study, I wanted to focus on decision-making bodies such as school site council, PTOs, any other bodies that, make decisions for the school, or even the professional development committees, safety committees, all of these committees that help make decisions for the school. So for this study, I intend to use an explanatory sequential design, and in this design, the quantitative analysis comes first, and then the qualitative analysis comes next. And the reason why this occurs is because the qualitative analysis serves as the explainer, for lack of a better word, for the quantitative analysis. And for the purposes of my study, I am going to give priority to the qualitative phase. Now, traditionally, in an explanatory sequential design, the quantitative analysis is given priority, but I think taking the perspective of a transformative perspective, I think it's important that we give priority to the qualitative analysis, because I believe that the qualitative analysis has more power to do good or create changes in the community. So when conducting the study, I intend to use parents from all school sites in the district. And for the quantitative analysis, I feel like this number will be anywhere between 15 and 20,000. And the reason why it's so big is because I believe that I can capture most of the parents, because a lot of the parents have to come in at the beginning of the school year to help get the children's schedule, and to fill out some lunch forms, and other types of paperwork that parents have to do at the beginning of the year at our district. So in that sense, I believe I can capture a large population from the schools. And then for the qualitative analysis, the sampling will be done purposefully, and I'll get 4 parents from each school site in the district, and there are about 12 schools in the district. So that'll be 48 total participants, and I will be doing a focus group so that I don't have 48 individual interviews that I have to do. And then for the data collection instrument that I'm going to use for the quantitative analysis will be a tweaked version of a parent involvement education survey that was conducted previously. So just taking that survey and then tweaking it so that I have some of the questions that I want for parental involvement in decision-making bodies. So the quantitative analysis will be using a binary logistic regression, and that's because participation in decision-making body is binary, which means it's a yes or a no. And there are multiple things that I will do to make sure that the analysis is valid and reliable. And some of the things it would be the Cougar-Richardson coefficient, which tests for internal consistency for binary responses. Since the sample will include a lot of the parents, I think it has a high external validity. And then finally, I will have researchers help critique the surveys to see if I can come to the appropriate conclusions because of it. The qualitative analysis will have a focus group, which I mentioned earlier, from each of the school sites, and there are about 12, so 12 total focus groups. And we will use a recording device during this focus group, and hopefully I can procure microphones for each of the participants so that we can capture the voices clearly. And after the analysis is done, I'm going to use NVivo to help come up with some preliminary codings and then go over the codings myself afterwards. So here's the timeline for the study. And the most important thing I want to say about this is that the quantitative collection needs to happen in August, and that's because that's when the beginning of the school year is for us. And also that the qualitative analysis is going to take a while because there's going to be a lot of information from the focus groups. And I'm actually not sure how long that might take. I just put 2 months, but who knows how long it's going to take because I've never carried out such a comprehensive qualitative analysis before. Yeah, that's the end of the study. So thank you for listening.